Ecology 66 Let's Talk publication. Ecology is the study of interaction between environment and organism. Every organism is surrounded by an environment and there is an interaction with its surrounding biotic and abiotic components. Ecology deals with the various principles, which govern the relationships between organisms and their environment. Ecology is an interdisciplinary field that includes biology and earth science. Writer first used the term ecology in 1868. Ernst Haeckel 1886 first correctly defined ecology as the science dealing with reciprocal relationship of organisms in the external world. Professor R. Misra is known as father of ecology in India. Integrative levels, scope, and scale of organization. The study of ecology has many layers, ranging from the individual organism, to the population, to the ecosystem, to the planet. The main aim of ecology is to study the interrelationship between organisms, i.e., plants, animals and environment. Studies like pollution, soil conservation, soil erosion, proper use of land, afforestation, control on deforestation, regulation of overgrazing, flood control, maintenance of soil fertility etc. are also done in the ecology. 1.1. Ecological hierarchy. Biosphere. Biome. Ecosystem. Community. 0. Population. Organism, individual. A organ system. A organs. A tissues. Non-living organelles. Compounds. Colloids, molecules, crystals. Mixtures. Atoms. Elementary particles, electrons, protons and neutrons. Genes. P and B. Tilde molecular biology equals tilde developmental biology equals tilde eco of LENBOIROGNMEYNTAL biology equals tilde at Stock Academy. Figure, hierarchy in ecology. Let's Talk publication 67 Ecology. 1.2. Branches of ecology. Autocology, ecology of a single species, i.e. the relation between a single species and its environment. Autocology. Include population ecology. Synecology, study of relationships between communities, group of population, and environment. Genecology, study of ecological adaptations in relation to genetic variability. Paleoecology, study of relationship of fossils of organism in the environment. Applied ecology, application of ecological concepts that deals with human welfare. Systems ecology, ecological concepts that's explained in terms of mathematical principles. Interpretation of ecological concepts in terms of mathematical principles. Population ecology, community ecology, taxonomic ecology. Study of growth, tropic. Structure, metabolism and regulation of a population. Applied ecology, habitat ecology. Human ecology, chemical ecology. Podology. Physiological adaptation. According to ecological conditions. Genecology, ecogeography, ecosystem ecology, ethology. Include biological productivity, study of animal behaviors in. Of an ecosystem or nature, how different environments under. It can best serve the mankind. Their natural conditions. At Let's Talk Academy. Figure, branches of ecology. 2. Environment. Environment is the sum total of all biotic, living, and abiotic, non-living components. The environment is the aggregate of all those things and set of conditions which directly or indirectly influence not only the life of organisms but also the communities at a particular place. The different components of the environment are interlinked and interdependent. Environment has profound effect on an organism. The environmental conditions which influence the life and development of plants are grouped into 4 main classes, ecological factors, which are as follows. 2.1. Climatic factors, abiotic components, the short-term properties of the atmosphere, such as temperature, light, pressure, humidity, precipitation, cloud cover and wind at a particular place and at a particular time, is called as weather. Climate is long-term distribution of the weather of an area. Although weather has profound effects on function, growth and survival of plants, it is the climate that determines the general type of vegetation in that particular area. The study of climatic factor is known as climatology. The chief climatic factors are 2.1.1. Water, precipitation, rainfall, is the main source of soil moisture. Hydrological cycle is the exchange of water between Earth's surface and atmosphere. Humidity of the air is expressed in terms of relative humidity. Climatic factors, abiotic components, the short-term properties of the atmosphere, such as temperature, light, pressure, humidity, precipitation, cloud cover and wind at a particular place and at a particular time, is called as weather. Climate is long-term distribution of the weather of an area. Although weather has profound effects on function, growth and survival of plants, it is the climate that determines the general type of vegetation in that particular area. The study of climatic factor is known as climatology. The chief climatic factors are 2.1.1. Water, precipitation, rainfall, is the main source of soil moisture. Hydrological cycle is the exchange of water between Earth's surface and atmosphere. Humidity of the air is expressed in terms of relative humidity. It is measured ecology 68 Let's Talk publication. By hygrometer, psychrometer. Epiphytes and cryoptogamic plants grow in those regions where relative humidity is high. The root of epiphytes absorb water from environment. The type of vegetation in any region can be determined by the annual rainfall. Amount of water in soil measured by tensiometer. 2.1.2. Light. All important biological functions are carried out by radiation energy of sunlight. Without this, life is not possible except in few bacteria. Light is measured by luxmeter or photometer. Light is measured by luxmeter or photometer. Solar radiation before entering the atmosphere carries energy at a constant rate, i.e., 2 calories cm. Minimum trademark known as the solar constant. On this basis of relative light requirements and the effect of light on the overall vegetative development, plants are classified ecologically into following categories. Apeliophytes. These plants grow maximum in full sunlight. In these plant internodes are short. The leaves of plants is small and narrow. Cuticle and hair are present on the surface of leaves. Beet geophytes. These plants grow best in lower light intensity. In these plant internodes are long, leaves are large, broad and thin, leaf surfaces dull. The plants grow in total darkness are called etiolated, long, thin, weak and yellow in colors. Albedo value. The fraction of solar energy that is reflected by the Earth's surface back into the space called albedo value. Albedo value is 80% for snow area. It is 20-30% for sand area and 5-10% for the forest. Out of the total sunlight. Apeliophytes. These plants grow maximum in full sunlight. In these plant internodes are short. The leaves of plants is small and narrow. Cuticle and hair are present on the surface of leaves. Beet geophytes. These plants grow best in lower light intensity. In these plant internodes are long, leaves are large, broad and thin, leaf surfaces dull. The plants grow in total darkness are called etiolated, long, thin, weak and yellow in colors. Albedo value. The fraction of solar energy that is reflected by the Earth's surface back into the space called albedo value. Albedo value is 80% for snow area. It is 20-30% for sand area and 5-10% for the forest. Out of the total sunlight only 1-5% is utilized in photosynthesis. 2.1.2.1. Effect of light. A photokinesis regulation of speed of locomotion due to light is called photokinesis. E.g., larva of muscle crab. Move fast if ELE-RGHT intensity increases. Beet photomorphogenesis in plants. Photoperiodism, seed germination, plant movements and distribution of plants. Seed light also affect the animal distribution in aquatic ecosystem, like in lake, pond and oceans. Plant distribution in aquatic ecosystem and stratification is observed in lake, pond and oceans ecosystem. Light is limiting factor for plants in deep water. Seasonal and diurnal activities like foraging, reproductive and migratory activities are controlled by light. Deep phenology timing of seasonal activities of plants in relation to change in environmental condition, flowering in particular season, leaf abscission, etc. The different stratification is observed in lake, pond, oceanic ecosystems due to distribution of light. 2.1.3. Temperature. Temperature is the degree of hotness or coldness of a substance. Temperature is a result of light. Temperature affects the growth of plants and animal. Due to high temperature plants suffer solarization and due to low temperature plants suffer freezing or frost injury. The vertical temperature gradient over Earth's surface is called lapse rate, and its value is 6.52 C per 1000 meters elevation. 1. The basis of temperature. The plants are classified as below. 2.1.3.1. Megatherms are tropical climate, region where high temperature prevails throughout the year, 30-40 degrees. The dominant vegetation is tropical rainforest. The tropical rainforests are the most dense forests of the world. They are in South America, on the side of Amazon River, Middle Africa, on the side of Congo River, and Southeast Asia. 2.1.3.2. Mesotherms climate. Subtropical climate, the high and low temperature alternates annually. Tropical deciduous forest is the dominant vegetation type in this region. Deciduous plants are those plants in which leaf fall takes place once in a year, e.g. Ficus religiosa, sacred tree. 2.1.3.3. Microtherms, the low temperature 10-20 degrees Celsius condition prevail throughout the year. The vegetation is mixed coniferous forests type taiga. 2.1.3.4. Hecastotherms, the vegetation growing in the very low temperature, 0-10 degrees Celsius conditions. The dominant vegetation is alpine vegetation, tundra. The plants growing at very low temperature are called cryophytes or psychrophytes. Animals use a variety of techniques to survive in cold temperatures. Some organisms change their behavior, curling up into a ball to reduce the exposed surface area. Others, such as penguins, may huddle together to conserve heat. There is a linear relationship between temperature and development. The absolute length of time is not important, rather, a combination of time and temperature, called degree days, determines development. Thus, 100 days by 4 degrees above the threshold equals 400 degree days, and 50 days by 8 degrees equals 400 degree days also. Let's talk publication 69 Ecology. 2.1.3.5. Effect of temperature on animal. 2.1.4. 2.2. Temperature affect the absolute size of an animal and its body parts. Bergman rule. Birds and mammals attain greater body size in cold region and lesser in warm region. Some ecologists define Bergman's rule as the tendency for the average body mass of animal populations within a species to increase with latitude. Allen's rule. Allen's rule states that among closely related endothermic, warm-blooded vertebrates, those living in colder environments tend to have shorter appendages than those living in warmer environments. A classic example is the ear size of hares and foxes. The tail, ears, limbs, eyes and snout of mammals are smaller in colder region and larger in warm region. The greater the surface area, the greater the heat loss. Jordan's rule. Fishes in cold water possess more vertebrae than those living in warm water. Glauber rule. Warm-blooded animals in hot and humid area, tropical region, are more darker in color, heavily. Jordan's rule. Fishes in cold water possess more vertebrae than those living in warm water. Glauber rule. Warm-blooded animals in hot and humid area, tropical region, are more darker in color, heavily pigmented, than cold area. Wrench's rule. Birds in cold region have narrow wings and in warm region have broader wings. Wind. High wind velocity causes soil erosion, breakage and uprooting of trees. The pollutants are dispersed through the air. Bergman rule. Birds and mammals attain greater body size in cold region and lesser in warm region. Some ecologists define Bergman's rule as the tendency for the average body mass of animal populations within a species to increase with latitude. Allen's rule states that among closely related endothermic, warm-blooded vertebrates, those living in colder environments tend to have shorter appendages than those living in warmer environments. A classic example is the ear size of hares and foxes. The tail, ears, limbs, eyes and snout of mammals are smaller in colder region and larger in warm region. The greater the surface area, the greater the heat loss. Jordan's rule: fishes in cold water possess more vertebrae than those living in warm water. Jordan's rule: fishes in cold water possess more vertebrae than those living in warm water. Glauger rule: warm-blooded animals in hot and humid area, tropical region, are more darker in color, heavily pigmented, than cold area. Wrench's rule: birds in cold region have narrow wings and in warm region have broader wings. Wind: high wind velocity causes soil erosion, breakage and uprooting of trees. The pollutants are dispersed through the air. The plants which are grown in strong wind areas have small enrolled leaves, so that they cannot be damaged by the wind easily. Small leaves do resistance to wind. Wherever the wind is not strong, the leaves are long in plants. Wind affects the humidity also. Near equator absolute humidity is maximum and it decreases towards the poles. Strong winds do not occur in humidity. So temperature, rainfall, humidity and wind are the major factors concerned with the control of climate. Topographic or geographic factor. Topographic factors are concerned with the physical geography of the Earth in an area. The chief topographic factors are as follows. Microclimate refers to local combinations of factors such as wind, rate of evaporation, humidity, temperature which differ from regional climate. Altitude. In simple words, altitude means height or depth. In other words, altitude is a distance measurement in the vertical up direction from a datum, any point of Earth, to an object. It is commonly used by the mean of the height above sea level of a location. Height of mountain chains: with the increase in altitude, climate changes as decrease in temperature, increase in humidity, increase in precipitation and increase in wind velocity. Earth's vegetation can be divided into different zones based on altitude. Up to 1,800 feet, tropical rainforest are found in this altitude. Tropical moist deciduous with 1,500 m. Rainfall are found. Tropical moist evergreen with 2,500 mm rainfall are found. B. 1,800–3,800 feet, grassland or desert, savanna. C. 3,800–7,800 feet, deciduous forest. Ocus common. D. 7,800–12,000 feet, coniferous forest, temperate evergreen forests, e.g., pinus, abies, picea. 12,000 feet is regarded as tree or timber line. Above this height of plants decreases. E. 12,000–14,000 feet, alpine vegetation, tundras, rhododendron, betula. Cushion-shaped dwarf shrubby. Vegetation. F. 140,000 upward, snowline. Generally the vegetation that develops on base of mountain to top is tropical temperate, taiga and tundra. Species diversity generally increases as one proceeds from high altitude to low altitude and from high latitude to low latitude. Biotic components. Biotic factor means the effect of living organism upon other living organism. It is the group of individuals of same species at a particular area at a particular time. These also have capacity of interbreeding. Population is dynamic. The dynamicity of population can increase or decrease depending upon the changes in abiotic and biotic environment. In temperate seas and lakes around the globe, planktonic population of diatoms is high. Their number based on availability of light and abundance of nutrients. Ecology 70 Let's Talk publication. Population is a group of individuals of same species living in particular area in particular unit of time. Population of different species that are not capable of breeding with each other. Local population also called demes. Demes are subgroups of population of organism inhabiting a particular area. E.g., Homo sapiens inhabiting hills, plains. In simple words, demes are the local population of polytypic species that actively interbreed with the same species and shares a distinct gene pool. A population of a certain area is determined by Lincoln formula. Population ecology is study of population and how they change over time. NK0K. Where N equals total population of particular area at particular time. K equals number of animals marked on the first visit. N equals number of animals captured on the second visit. K equals number of marked animals in recaptured animals. 3.1. Characteristics of population. Characteristics are statical variables of population. A population has various characteristics. Some of the characteristics are population density, birth rate, natality, death rate, mortality, age distribution, biotic potential, dispersion or R and K selected growth forms. 3.1.1. Birth rate. Natality. 1. It is the measurement of birth rate of a population. Natality is the ability of a population to increase by reproduction. 2. It is calculated as number of births per 1,000 individuals per year. Maximum natality is the theoretical maximum production of new individuals under ideal conditions and is a constant for a given population. Natality refers to population increase under an actual or specific environmental field condition. It is not a constant for a population but may vary with the size and age composition of the population. 3. Natality rate is used to calculate the dynamics of a population. Natality is used to determining whether a population is increasing, decreasing or staying the same in size. Natality is the greatest influence on a population's increase. Natality is generally expressed as a rate determined by dividing the number of new individuals per unit time by a unit of population. X. A population of amoeba in a pond increased by division to 150 in 1 hour. The crude natality is 100 per hour and the specific natality is 2 per hour per individual. NN. TT. Bis natality rate. NN, no of individual added by birth rate. T, Anatof time. Natality is 2 types. Absolute natality, it is the total birth by an individual under ideal conditions with no competition, abundance of resources such as food and water, etc. Realized natality, it is the actual number of births which can sustain their life. Features of natality. 1. LTADDS, new members to the population. It increases size of population. Natality adds to population density. It maintains continuity of population. V. K. W and N. It is high when population size is small and low when population size is large. The natality of a population is measured by growth rate. For wildlife management, ENT equals ENT plus BD plus IE, where ONL equals number of individuals of met. Let's talk publication 71 Ecology. 3.1.2. 3.2. 3.3. No equals number of individuals at time t, B equals number of individuals born, D equals number of individuals that died, I equals number of individuals that immigrated. O. 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 E equals number of individuals that emigrated between time t and time t. Mortality, it is a measurement of death in a population. Mortality may be expressed as the number of individuals died in a given period. It is also called as deaths per unit time. Mortality are of two types, minimum mortality and actual mortality. It is calculated by death on per 1,000 individuals per year. In the case of human, the rate of mortality is reduced by vaccination programs of government and by the improvement in treatment methods. Mortality. 1. It is number of deaths per unit population per unit time, e.g., per 1,000 individuals per year in humans. 2. It removes individuals from the population. 3. It decreases substrate TOTA HLE PO S PU ILA ZTOEN. 4. Mortality reduces density of given population. 5. It maintains health of the population. 6. Mortality is low when population size is small and high when population size is large. Age. Every population is formed by presence of different age groups in it. In a population, all members are not same age group. Some members are young, some are adult and some are old ages. Age distribution of a population is the proportion of individuals at different ages. Salient features of age distribution. Age distributions has significant impact on future population growth. Age distribution is affected by many factors, and mortality and natality is directly affected by age distribution. According to Bodenheimer, age distribution is differential into three stages. A. Periproductive age. B. Reproductive age. C. Postreproductive age. Normally, which population have more adult member, their reproductive rate is more, but lack of their parental care, their mortality rate is increase. In insect population, pre-reproductive age is long but real reproductive age is low. In mammals, all three ages approximately same. In many animal and plant species, pre-reproductive age is long. Density, it is the number of population in per unit area. Different areas have different density of population according to the presence of resources and possibilities for a bright future. Population density is of two types. Crude density, it is defined as the number of individuals or biomass per unit of the total space, e.g. the number of rhinoceros living in the Kaziranga National Park. Specific or ecological density, it is defined as the number or biomass per unit of the habitat space, available area or volume that can be actually colonized by the population. Generally, populations do not occupy all the space available to them, so we may estimate the number of rhinoceros per square mile. However, some area can be avoided because of the lack of food, shelter and human habitations. Therefore, the area inhabited by the rhinoceros actually will be its ecological density. The difference between crude and ecological density can be explained by taking the example of a fish pond. The density of the fish in the pond decreases as the water level drops during the summer season, but the ecological density in the decreasing water of pond increases, as the fish are crowded into smaller water area. It becomes very easy for the predatory bird to catch fish at this time of the year as the ecological density of the fish is at its peak. Ecology 72 Let's Talk Publication 3.4 DENCTY Ecological at Let's Talk Academy June-December. Figure, change in crude density and ecological density with respect to months. Distribution, every species of a population have a tendency to develop in more than geographic area. This tendency is called population distribution. Species distribution is the manner in which a biological taxon is spatially arranged. Population can be distributed in three ways. Clump distribution, when species have group-forming tendencies, so they form clump distribution. Most common type of dispersion found in nature. The distance between neighboring individuals is minimized. Social animals like ants, b. Uniform distribution, competition occurs so distribution is uniform, some, e.g. agriculture land random distribution environment stage is same but group formation tendency is absent. E.g. unsocial animals January. Clumped uniform random at Let's Talk Academy. Population oscillation, the repeated changes in population from one extreme to another extreme is termed as population oscillation. It includes ups and downs again and again in a population. In a population, species member can vary by external factors, but oscillation goes regular and it is a step-by-step process. Two type of oscillation occurs. Seasonal, it depend on seasonal. Example, growth in phytoplankton, in rainy season mosquito and fly number increase. Annual, it is because of external and internal factor. By internal factor, these changes are irregular, but by external factor, these changes are regular and cyclic. Population pyramids. These graphical representation is used for the determination of age structure of a population. It represents the pre-reproductive stage, reproductive stage and post-reproductive stage of a population. Age pyramid. In age pyramid, different age group member draw in successive horizontal bar. Fast dispersal population have high rate of natality and exponentially growth in number of organism like bacteria, yeast, dragonfly. In stable population, the number of individual in post-reproductive and reproductive age group is approximately equal to pre-reproductive age group, so they form bell-shaped pyramid. When the number of individuals in pre-reproductive age group is less than both reproductive age group and post-reproductive age group, then this gives an urn-shaped age pyramid. When members of pre-reproductive greater than reproductive greater than post-reproductive. Pyramid-shaped graph achieved, which represents positive growth in a condition of developing country. Let's talk publication 73 Ecology. 3.6. 3.7. 3.7.1. Members of pre-reproductive tilde reproductive greater than post-reproductive. Bell-shaped graph achieved. Members of pre-reproductive less than reproductive greater than post-reproductive. Urn-shaped graph achieved, which represents negative growth in a condition of developed country. Female male. At Livestock Academy, rapidly expanding stationary contracting, mainly rural, pyramid-shaped bell-shaped urn-shaped figure. Types of pyramid. Population propagation. Population propagation occur by interaction between biotic and abiotic factor. Population propagation is because of population density, change in environmental factor. In population propagation, emigration and migration occurs. Emigration, the individual of particular population show emigration in order to reduce the competition for food, shelter and reproduction. To avoid the competition, individuals leave the crowded place to go another place. Immigration, when a displaced population come from another population and settled in new residency population. For immigration, competition start between species for food and shelter. Migration, in many animal, a large part of population displaced for a particular time, that is called migration. Example, Siberian crane or migrate in Kaleidu. The size of population growing geometrically, so this equation is modeled as n equals number where n equals IC num of BINDIVIDRUALS a time t. No equals initial number of individuals. L equals average nu mof bof EFSPR ring produced by an indigiri versus ing I1 d tim UEA and L larval. We can use this model to project the future size of your hypothetical flocks population. The population would soon be so dense that plants would die because they lack sufficient nutrients, light and water. The population would soon spread beyond the physical limits to which a population is adapted. Growth curve. J-shape or exponential growth curve. A curve on a graph that records the situation in a new environment, in which the population density of an organism increases rapidly in an exponential form but then stops abruptly as environmental resistance, e.g. seasonality in case of seasonal plants, annual plants, or some other factor, e.g. the end of the breeding phase, suddenly becomes effective. The J-shaped exponential growth curve has two phases. In the lag phase, growth is slow because the population is small. In the exponential growth phase, growth is accelerating. In exponential growth, population display continuous growth in an favorable unlimited environment. In human or bacteria, populations can be described by exponential model of population growth. The number of individuals increases over time logarithmically, e.g. bacterial cultures. This type of growth is very important to population during establishment of a population in new environments. I.e. during early succession, the pioneer community show this type of growth curve, as plenty of food and other resources are available for survival. Ecology 74 Let's Talk publication. A. Biotic potential is exhibited during exponential growth. The biotic potential is defined as the maximum population growth under ideal circumstances. B. These circumstances include plenty of room for each member, unlimited resources, e.g., food, water, and no, e.g., predators. The exponential model is appropriate for population which show overlapping generation because it expresses the rate of population growth in continuous process. A n dt equals Rn, where R is constant while n is variable, equals the per capita rate of increase times number of individuals. Change in number. DNN, number of individuals. Change in time. Per capita rate of increase. Therefore population size n increases the rate of population increase, then dn dt also gets increased. The rate of population increases gets increased because the constant r is multiplied by a larger population size n, so during exponential growth, the rate of population growth increases over time. When the population grow at an exponential rate, the population size ATANY time t can be calculated as n equals number. This type of growth curve is popularly known as boom and bust growth curve. J-shape is observed during algal blooms and during eutrophication. This type of population growth is termed density independent, as the regulation of growth rate is not linked to the population density until the final crash. This type of population growth is termed density independent, as the regulation of growth rate is not linked to the population density until the final crash. Density independent growth, the size of population is not a factor in determining the resulting population size overall. The factors that affect the population growth are mostly abiotic, like temperature, storms, floods, drought, habitat destruction. The number of individual at time t \n equals no a, number of time intervals in hours, days, years, etc. Base of the natural logarithms. Per capita rate of increase, in offspring per time interval. Human population growth. The human population is now in an exponential part of a J-shaped growth curve. The doubling time for human population is 53 years only. Zero population growth is when the birth rate equals the death rate and the population size remains steady. Natural population may grow at exponential rates for relatively short period of time in the presence of abundant resource. Let's talk publication 75 Ecology. 3.7.2. NUMBER. OF. INDI versus IDUALS. Time. Figure, population growth curve. Exponential growth by tree population. Tree population in the northern hemisphere followed the retreating glaciers northward. Algal bloom exhibit exponential population growth in response to seasonal increase in nutrients and light. J-shaped curve is obtained by the species which have a specific breeding season or highly sensitive for environmental factors. These species starts growing in accelerating phase and a sudden increase in its population, but then it sudden stops by any environmental or other resistance and attains its carrying capacity. It can be seen in algal blooms. Logistic population growth or S-shaped curve. A growth of a population in a new environment in which the population density of an organism increases slowly at initial stage and then an exponential growth observed, but after a time period growth starts to decline and slowly attains a stability which is termed as carrying capacity for that species. In addition to the lag phase and exponential growth, there is a deceleration phase where the rate of population growth slows down in a stable equilibrium phase with little if any growth, because births equal deaths. This curve is called logistic because the exponential portion of the curve would plot as a straight line as log of n carrying capacity. The carrying capacity K is the maximum number of individuals of a particular species that can be supported by the environment. When the number of individual n is small, a large portion of the carrying capacity has not been utilized by the population. In this situation, the population experiences the positive acceleration phase of growth, but as n approaches K, population growth slows down because Krn is nearing zero. At carrying capacity, the population size is approximately constant, because the birth rate is equal to death rates. The population growth is zero at carry capacity. The idea behind carrying capacity is an environment cannot support as many as individual of particular species. DDTN_RN, 1. Less than KN 3T Lieutenant TT N5 greater than NSR less than R40 17. Degree 1. Q0. S, 7 greater than. Equals Z. Place. 0 time T at Livestock Academy. Overfishing from a particular pond drives a population of fish into the lag phase. The crop population show exponential phase again after reducing crop pests. Farmers can reduce the carrying capacity for a pest by alternating Ecology 76 Let's Talk publication. Rows of different crops, e.g. in African buffalo, carrying capacity determined by the amount of the grass available as food. Yeast population are eventually limited by their waste product alcohol. For many species, carrying capacity is determined by the factors like food, parasitism, diseases and space. Population ecologists modified the logistic model by exponential growth model, IDUS also known as continuous growth. The simplest equation of carrying capacity is D, N equals Rn, Nk. DTK. Rearranging the logistic equation clearly show the influence of population size and a rate of population growth. It is discrete growth. Ne equals Rn. Rn, 1, K. N, 1. Becomes smaller so N equals K, then right side of the equation becomes 0 so population size increase. As the ratio percent increases, population growth SIOWs. At Livestock Academy. Change in numbers population size. Dn. E equals Rn IET. Change in time. Carrying capacity. Intrinsic rate of increase. Logistic population growth is highest when N equals K2. In logistic model, per capita rate is increase. Which is R, that depends on population size. The relationship between R and population size in the logistic model. Straight line which is shown below. Carrying capacity, growth, theoretical. Graph, VTH stops, populate ln SI's maximum population L stab I is at carrying capacity. K. N equals 1. NUMBER. OF. INDI versus IDUALS. N. Time at Livestock Academy Y. This type of population growth is termed density dependent, since growth rate depends on the numbers present in. Let's talk publication 77 Ecology. 3.8. 3.9. The population. The point of stabilization, or zero growth rate, is termed the saturation value, symbolized by K, or carrying capacity of the environment for that organism. K represents the upper region of the sigmoid or S-shaped curve produced when changing population numbers are plotted over time. It is usually summarized mathematically by the logistic equation. Diseases spread more quickly in this type of population. Density-dependent factors, factors that have a greater effect as the size or density of the population increases. Competition for space and food can modify the population size by affecting the following processes. 1. Behavioral responses: a cessation of mating. B. Poor parental care. C. Increased aggressive behavior equals contest competition, social dominance. 2. Physiological responses: increased spontaneous abortions. B. Delayed maturation, alter reproductive cycles. C. Hormonal changes, alter reproductive cycles. Regulation of population growth. Population growth is affected by birth and death rate. 2. Type of regulation: I. Density dependent. 2. Density independent. Many factors like food, shelter, rainfall, diseases, floods and predators affect the population size. When biotic factors are affected, they cause diseases and influenced by population density. The biotic factors are known as density-dependent factors. The abiotic factors are known as density-independent factors. If abiotic factors like floods or extreme temperature are effective, then they can influence population density independently as their name. Metapopulation. Group of population which are separated from one another by any barrier and they interact at some level are termed as metapopulation. In metapopulation, the two or more local populations are connected by a patch of land through which the populations can interact with each others. This interactions among the subpopulations maintains the metapopulation. Metapopulation theory is applicable for wildlife habitats as they maintain some degree of patchiness. If a population exists in the metapopulation forms, then the chances of extinction of that population is less as the population persists in some patches. Metapopulation is feature of heterogeneous population. The factors that human population is now in an exponential part of a J-shaped growth curve. The doubling time for human population is 53 years only. Zero population growth is when the birth rate equals the death rate and the population size remains steady. Natural population may grow at exponential rates for a relatively short period of time in the presence of abundant resource. Let's talk publication 75 Ecology. 3.7.2. NUMBER. OF. INDI versus IDUALS. Time. Figure, population growth curve. Exponential growth by tree population. Tree population in the northern hemisphere followed the retreating glaciers northward. Algal bloom exhibit exponential population growth in response to seasonal increase in nutrients and light. J-shaped curve is obtained by the species which have a specific breeding season or highly sensitive for environmental factors. These species starts growing in accelerating phase and a sudden increase in its population, but then it sudden stops by any environmental or other resistance and attains its carrying capacity. It can be seen in algal blooms. Logistic population growth or S-shaped curve. A growth of a population in a new environment in which the population density of an organism increases slowly at initial stage and then an exponential growth observed, but after a time period growth starts to decline and slowly attains a stability which is termed as carrying capacity for that species. In addition to the lag phase and exponential growth, there is a deceleration phase where the rate of population growth slows down in a stable equilibrium phase with little if any growth, because births equal deaths. This curve is called logistic because the exponential portion of the curve would plot as a straight line as log of n carrying capacity. The carrying capacity K is the maximum number of individuals of a particular species that can be supported by the environment. When the number of individual n is small, a large portion of the carrying capacity has not been utilized by the population. In this situation, the population experiences the positive acceleration phase of growth, but as n approaches K, population growth slows down because KRN is nearing zero. At carrying capacity, the population size is approximately constant because the birth rate is equal to death rates. The population growth is zero at carry capacity. The idea behind carrying capacity is an environment cannot support as many as individual of particular species. DDTN_RN, 1. Less than KN, 3T Lieutenant TT, N5 greater than NSR less than R40, 17. Degree 1. Q0. S, 7 greater than. Equals Z. Place. 0 time T at Livestock Academy. Overfishing from a particular pond drives a population of fish into the lag phase. The crop population show exponential phase again after reducing crop pests. Farmers can reduce the carrying capacity for a pest by alternating Ecology 76 Livestock publication. Rows of different crops, e.g. in African buffalo, carrying capacity determined by the amount of the grass available as food. Yeast population are eventually limited by their waste product alcohol. For many species, carrying capacity is determined by the factors like food, parasitism, diseases and space. Population ecologists modified the logistic model by exponential growth model. IDUS, also known as continuous growth. The simplest equation of carrying capacity is D, N equals Rn, Nk. DTK. Rearranging the logistic equation clearly show the influence of population size and a rate of population growth. It is discrete growth. Ne equals Rn. Rn, 1, K. N, 1. Becomes smaller, so N equals K, then right side of the equation becomes 0, so population size increase. As the ratio % increases, population growth SIOWs. At Livestock Academy. Change in numbers, population size. Dn. E equals Rn, IET. Change in time. Carrying capacity. Intrinsic rate of increase. Logistic population growth is highest when N equals K2. In logistic model, per capita rate is increase. Which is R, that depends on population size. The relationship between R and population size in the logistic model. Straight line which is shown below. Carrying capacity, growth, theoretical. Graph, VTH stops, populate ln SI's maximum population L stab I is at carrying capacity. K. N equals 1. NUMBER. OF. INDI versus IDUALS. N. Time at Livestock Academy Y. This type of population growth is termed density dependent, since growth rate depends on the numbers present in. Let's talk publication 77 Ecology. 3.8. 3.9. The population. The point of stabilization, or zero growth rate, is termed the saturation value, symbolized by K, or carrying capacity of the environment for that organism. K represents the upper region of the sigmoid or S-shaped curve produced when changing population numbers are plotted over time. It is usually summarized mathematically by the logistic equation. Diseases spread more quickly in this type of population. Density-dependent factors, factors that have a greater effect as the size or density of the population increases. Competition for space and food can modify the population size by affecting the following processes. 1. Behavioral response is a cessation of mating. B. Poor parental care. C. Increased aggressive behavior equals contest competition, social dominance. 2. Physiological responses are increased spontaneous abortions. B. Delayed maturation, alter reproductive cycles. C. Hormonal changes, alter reproductive cycles. Regulation of population growth. Population growth is affected by birth and death rate. 2. Type of regulation, I. Density dependent. 2. Density independent. Many factors like food, shelter, rainfall, diseases, floods and predators affect the population size. When biotic factors are affected, they cause diseases and influenced by population density. The biotic factors are known as density-dependent factors. The abiotic factors are known as density-independent factors. If abiotic factors like floods or extreme temperature are affected, then they can influence population density independently as their name. Metapopulation. Group of population which are separated from one another by any barrier and they interact at some level are termed as metapopulation. In metapopulation, the two or more local populations are connected by a patch of land through which the populations can interact with each others. This interactions among the subpopulations maintains the metapopulation. Metapopulation theory is applicable for wildlife habitats as they maintain some degree of patchiness. If a population exists in the metapopulation forms, then the chances of extinction of that population is less as the population persists in some patches. Metapopulation is feature of heterogeneous population. The factors that affect the animal movement within metapopulation are patch size, patch isolation, edge characteristics, and matrix characteristics. Satellite patches. Corridorso. OU copyright _ O satellite patches. At degree stepping stones at Letstock Academy. Figure, metapopulation. Hansky, 1997, suggests that in a population where 4 specified conditions are met, a Levins-based metapopulation model is applicable. Levins model. Levins' original model applied to a metapopulation distributed over many patches of suitable habitat with Ecology 78 Let's Talk publication. 3.10. Significantly less interaction between patches than within a patch. Key predictions. Metapopulation persists I, C less than 1. P increases with increasing patch area. This is because of decreasing extinction. P increases with decreasing distance among patches because of increasing colonization. Landscape ecology and metapopulation dynamics. Exchange of individual, e.g., immigration and emigration, among patches is the feature of population which has patchy distribution. If the exchange rate is high and frequent, this is an indication that one species is occupying more than one patches. If each patch has distinct and separate population, then the rate of exchange is very low and infrequent. However, in the metapopulation there is an intermediate level of exchange between patches and having regular movement among the patches. The individual shows a dispersing behavior moving from their natal site to another patch. The dynamics of metapopulation exist when species have demes in discrete habitat patches. Each deme has a finite probability of extinction. The extinction events of all demes are not synchronized. This can be imagined by the empty patches. Metapopulation theory is an important tool studying population dynamics in fragmented landscapes. Sources and sinks concept is used to explain the metapopulation dynamics. When one patch has a high intrinsic growth in which the birth rate exceeds the death rate, these patches are termed as source. The source is characterized by high population growth. This high growth exceeds the patch's carrying capacity. Sink is defined as patches having less birth rate than the death rate. The individual in the population migrates from source to sink. The knowledge of source and sink patches is critical for understanding how a particular metapopulation functions. This is called as patches occupancy. If a critical number of the source's patches are lost, then there is a very high chance that the entire metapopulation will collapse. Deme. Localized breeding groups are also known as demes. In a typical landscape, the suitable habitat for most species exists in a patchy pattern, so patches of habitat usually define the location and boundaries of demes. These are the isolated populations which are able to interbreed and create a different gene pool in their population. After a long time of selection they can be termed as subspecies. Various populations of gorillas can be understood by their geographical separation and have been assessed to determine distinct and disjointed gene pools. Dispersal. It is the process of migration of species from one place to another. It can be of organisms for the search of food, pollens for pollination. This dispersal can be density dependent, in which the increasing number of population forces an individual to migrate, and another is the density independent, in which organisms use natural environmental factors and disperse randomly. Patches, matrix and corridors. Patch structure of a landscape affects the spatial distribution of individuals and their movements, hence influence the dynamics of populations. Patch size is the critical parameter of landscape which is directly related to local population size. Larger patch can support greater number of population for a long period of time as it has great abundance of food. Immigration and emigration both are affected by the distance between patches. Corridors connect patches and facilitate interpatch movements. The small habitat patches which are scattered throughout the matrix act as stepping stones to promote movement between large patches. The movement of individual of a population between habitat patches is relatively easy or difficult. This is called as permeability. The spaces between habitat patches, filled by the matrix, are called gaps. The ability of species to move across this space is called its gap crossing ability. Reproductive strategies. Population growth dependence upon reproductive strategies. Organism develops different reproductive strategies. Let's talk publication 79 Ecology. 3.11. Because of environment uncertainty. For example, some organisms are simulparity which can produce all of their offspring in a single reproductive event. This is common in insects and invertebrates and also occurs in organisms such as salmon, bamboo, and yucca plants. These individuals reproduce only once in lifetime and die. Iteroparity organisms reproduce in successive years or breeding seasons. Iteroparity organism reproduce throughout the life a regular period of time. It is common to most vertebrates, perennial plants, and trees. Organisms living in temperate region have distinct breeding seasons, seasonal iteroparity, that lead to distinct generations. Individuals reproduce repeatedly and at any time of the year. Organisms living in tropical region have continuous breeding seasons, continuous iteroparity. Simple categorization of life history strategies, Rand K selection. Some of the characteristics of Rand K selected species, from Caddy, 1984. Characteristics. Climate. Risk of natural death. Population size. Competition between species and within species. Length of life. Usually 1 or less than 1 year. Atlet Stock Academy. Y, 7, greater than L. Equals carrying capacity. IIKII greater than. Plateau. Is phase. U. K. CC equals 15 3 K equals S. Eta O. Time Atlet Stock Academy. K species or species. O figure, curve for R and K selected species natural selection in favor of 1. Rapid development. 2. High rate of population increase. 3. High rate of egg production. Ecology 80 Let's Talk publication. 3.12. NUMBER. OF. SUR versus IVORS. 4. Small body size. 5. Singular production. 6. Less emphasis in behavioral and morphological characteristics to increase individual survival habits. 1. Slow development. 2. Low rate of population increase. 3. Low rate of egg production. 4. Large body size. 5. Multiple reproduction. 6. Behavior and morphology assures good individual survival, e.g., territorial behavior, spines, special dentition, and special feeding habits. Survivorship curves. In a population, mortality of species is described by survivability curve. Survivorship curve is drawn against time of survival organism. In a population, 3 types of survival curve. Different types of survivorship curves on the basis of survivors and age. Diagonal curve. In all types of ages, mortality rate is constant and straight curve is obtained. X. Hydra, birds, and rats. Convex curve. When organisms spend her complete life period up to the old age and then they are so, this is convex type curve. X. Human, rabbit and other mammalian. Concave curve. When organism not spend her complete period they become dead in short life, so concave curve is obtained. X. Oysters and fishes. 1000. 100. In populations with a type L survivorship curve, individuals have a constant chance of dying, L, throughout their lives. 10. 1 L. Young Atlet Stock Academy. Old. Age. Figure. Survivorship curves. A survivorship curve is a graph showing the number or proportion of individuals surviving to each age for a given species or group, e.g. males or females. Survivorship curves can be constructed for a given cohort, a group of individuals of roughly the same age, based on a life table. The numbers of densities on the vertical axis are almost always plotted on a log scale. Survivorship schedules, SX, is used to calculate in order to understand survivorship curves. There are 3 parameters of survivorship schedules. Standardized survivorship, X, age-specific survivorship, GX, and life expectancy, X. Standardized survival schedule, X. Let's Talk publication 81 Ecology. 3.13. EL. 3.13.1. 3.13.2. Because we want to compare cohorts of different initial sizes, we standardize all cohorts to their initial size at time 0, so. We do this by dividing each SX by so. This proportion of original numbers surviving to the beginning of each interval is denoted X. We can also think of X as the probability that an individual survives from birth to the beginning of age X. Because we begin with all the individuals born during the year or other interval, X always begins at a value of 1, i.e., so S0, and can only decrease with time. At the last age, K, SK is 0. Type curve represents that higher reproductive mortality and it attains a maximum lifespan. Type L curve represents that a constant decline in the survivability of individuals with the increasing age of organism. Type L curve represents that a sharp decrease in the number of population of individual and few of them survive, which attains the maximum lifespan. Life tables. A life table is a record of survival and reproductive rates in a population, broken out by age, size, or developmental stage, e.g., egg, hatchling, juvenile, adult. Ecologists and demographers, scientists who study human population dynamics, have found life tables useful in understanding patterns and causes of mortality, predicting the future growth or decline of populations, and managing populations of endangered species. A tabular form of a survivorship curve. First developed for human populations, e.g. actuarial tables for life insurance companies. Significance of life table. Population age structure. It gives insight into No of young versus S-No of old individuals in the population. Reproductive age individuals. Population growth rate can be measured, how fast the population size growing or shrinking. Population survivorship patterns. There are 2 varieties of life table. Cohort life table. A cohort is the total individuals born, hatched, or recruited into a population during a particular time interval. Normally cohorts are defined and calculated if cohorts is on the annual basis. E.g., all individuals born in 2015. A cohort life table follows the survival and reproduction of all members of a cohort from birth to death. Astatic life table. Static or time-specific life table count all individuals alive at a given time and record the age of each, records the number of living individuals of each age in a population and their reproductive output. Life tables, whether cohort or static, that classify by age are called age-based life tables. Size-based and stage-based life tables classify individuals by size or developmental stage, rather than by age. Itis more useful. This type of curve is characteristic of species that produce a large number of offspring. This includes most marine invertebrates. The different columns of a life table are as follows. X equals age interval or age class. NX equals numOf BSUERVI RVORs at start of age intervals. X equals proportion of organisms surviving to start age interval X. Dx equals the number or proportion dying during age interval X L X plus 1. Gx equals rate of mortality during the age interval X TO X plus 1. Lx equals number of individuals live UEAN LS the average during the age interval X to X plus 1. T equals total years to be lived by individuals of Ag XA and the population. X equals mean expectation of life for individuals alive at start of age interval X. A cohort table provides more information. A static life table is built by determining the age of dead individuals of a cross-section of the population. The static life table does not directly show the survivorship or fecundity of that population as it matures, experiencing changes in the environment. Instead, these numbers must be derived using the assumption that the mortality experienced by a cohort at any age stays constant. On the downside, following the Ecology 82 Let's Talk publication, cohort over many years is usually difficult. Life table symbols and definition of terms. X equals age class or interval. X equals proportion of the population that began the generation that survived to age class X. Fx equals average number of female offspring produced by individuals during age class X. Usually only females are tabulated in life tables, males are superfluous. Hypothetical example, imagine two species of mice. Both live a maximum of 5 years with the same survivorship. Species A produces 2 offspring in year 2 and none after that. Species B produces 5 offspring, 1 in year 3, and 2 in each of years 4 and 5. Which species has the higher growth rate? To allow comparisons to other studies, number of doll sheep surviving and dying within each year of life is converted to numbers per 1,000 births. \. At Let's Talk Academy. 1. If k were infinity, nt k would be 0 and the population growth would follow the equation for exponential growth. 2. If the population size, nt, were much smaller than carrying capacity k, then nt k would be small. In this case the population would grow nearly exponentially, until the population size were no longer much smaller than k. The Lotka-Volterra equations is used to express a population change based upon growth and maximum population size. Let's Talk publication 83 Ecology. Their relationship is normally expressed as a differential equation. Ent. In this equation, the expression dn dt represents the rate of change of number of organisms, n, with time, t, andrus a growth term, unitstime1, and kis the carrying capacity, same units as n. Equals rn, 1%. It is clear that for small values of n, n kis very small so that 1 n k is approximately equal to 1, and the equation is effectively. As n increases, 1 n k becomes smaller, effectively reducing the value of r. This is termed density dependence, and is an example of negative feedback because the larger the population, the lower the growth rate. This equation can be rewritten in a form that can be evaluated for any value of n at 2 times t and t plus 1, giving the equation. Notice that this equation contains new parameters rand a. These are related to r and k by 1 r equals fecundity, mortality, equals express r, and lr1k. Summary. Exponential phase. 1. Rapid increase in population growth. 2. Natality rate exceeds mortality rate. 3. Abundant resources available. Food, water, shelter. 4. Diseases on predators are traditional phase. 1. Natality rate starts to fall and or mortality rate starts to rise. 2. Theorized decrease in the number of resources. 3. And increase in the number of predators and diseases. 4. Population still increasing but at a slower rate. Plateau phase. 1. No more population growth, population size is constant. 2. Natality rate is equal to mortality rate. 3. The population has reached the carrying capacity of the environment. 4. The limited resources and the common predators and diseases keep the population numbers constant. Ecology 84 Let's Talk publication. 4.1. 1. 2. 3, 4. 5, 6. 7, 8. 4.2. 4.2.1. 4.2.1.1. 4.2.1.2. Basic inorganic and organic compounds. The ecosystem term was first coined by A. G. Tansley in 1935. E. P. Odum is the father of ecosystem. An ecosystem, a complete ecological uneven ecological hierarchy that includes both biotic and abiotic compound of a particular area. Simply, it is a functional unit where input and output of substance or matter occurs between living and non-living component in that area. The both biotic and abiotic components are interacted through the nutrient cycles and energy flow between them, and the living organisms also interact with each other. Ecosystem is the smallest structural and functional unit of nature or environment. This term is derived from 2 words, namely eco and system. Eco refers to environment and system refers to a complex coordinated unit. It is an interacting system where the biotic and abiotic factors interact to produce an exchange of materials between the living and non-living factors by which they influence the property of each other. Pond is a suitable example for ecosystem. Other examples of ecosystem are river, lake, estuary, ocean, marine, desert, forest, grassland, town, city, etc. Evanodrop of water is an ecosystem. Characteristics of ecosystem. In any ecosystem, the biotic communities interact with their abiotic component that affect the biotic properties of individual maintained NAIR NFLG of energy. Ecosystem is normally an open system because of both energy and materials flow in and out of the system. The size of an ecosystem may be micro, such as a drop of water, or macro, c. An ecosystem may be temporary as a freshwater pond, an agriculture field, or permanent like a forest, desert, grassland, ocean, and river. SUNY is an ultimate source of energy for an ecosystem. Ecosystem is an auto-regulatory and auto-sustaining unit. Each trophic level controls the other trophic level. The branch of science that deals with auto-control of an ecosystem is called cybernetics. Homeostasis is the process of ecosystem equilibrium. In case of changes in one trophic level of ecosystem, the other trophic level of same ecosystem may react according to it. So ecosystem always remains in equilibrium. Type of ecosystem. Natural ecosystem. These are self-regulating systems without much direct human interference and manipulations. Terrestrial ecosystem, e.g., forest, grassland, tree, desert ecosystems. Aquatic ecosystem. Aquatic ecosystem is again of two types. 2a. Lentic ecosystem. A lentic ecosystem has still waters. Examples: ponds, marshes, ditches, reservoirs, and lakes. 2b. Lotic ecosystem. A lotic ecosystem, GMFNGG, large wing waters. Examples: creeks, streams, rivers, springs, and channels. Decomposers. Abiotic components. Figure: pond, lentic ecosystem. Let's Talk Publication 85. Ecology. 4.2.2. Artificial ecosystem. These are man-made ecosystems, e.g. agriculture land, city, town, cropland, gardens, etc. Type of ecosystem on the basis of size. Mega ecosystems. The mega ecosystem is further divided into subunit called macro ecosystems, e.g., forests. The terrestrial macro ecosystem is formed of many forest ecosystems. Macro ecosystem. The macro ecosystem is further divided into meso ecosystem. For example, the forest ecosystem is formed of many meso ecosystems like deciduous forest, coniferous forests, etc. Meso ecosystem. The meso ecosystem is further divided into micro ecosystems, e.g., a lowland in a forest, a mountain in a forest, pond, etc. IV. Nanoecosystem. Drop of water. 4.3. Components and structure of ecosystem. Ecosystem has two components. A biotic component. B. Biotic component. 4.3.1. Abiotic component. The abiotic factors of an ecosystem include the non-living substances of the environment, e.g., water, soil, air, light, temperature, minerals, climate, pressure, etc. The biotic factors of the ecosystem depend upon the abiotic factors for their survival. 4.3.2. Biotic component. The biotic factor include the living organisms of the environment, e.g. plants, animals, bacteria, viruses, etc. The biotic factors of an ecosystem are classified into three main groups, namely, producers, B. consumers, C. reducers or decomposers. 4.3.2.1. Producers. These are autotrophs or organisms that produce biomass at their own basis. They carry out photosynthesis and are provided with chlorophyll. In the process of photosynthesis, producers absorb sunlight and convert it into chemical energy, so producers are also called as transducers or converters. The sun is the ultimate source of energy in ecosystem. Thus the autotrophs depend on the abiotic factors of the ecosystem for producing energy. A portion of the energy synthesized is used by the producers for their growth and survival, and the remaining energy is stored for future use, and this stored energy is the ultimate source for the heterotrophs. According to their mode of production, the producer can be divided in various terms. 1. Photoautotrophs use sunlight as energy source, e.g. phytoplankton. 2. Chemoautotrophs use chemical energy in form of chemical bonds as energy source, e.g. iron bacteria, sulfur bacteria, nitrifying bacteria. 4.3.2.2. Consumers. Heterotrophs. Consumers are organisms which eat other organisms, and heterotrophs are organisms that consume biomass alive or dead. They are not able to produce their own food. They are dependent on the produce for our energy. The two kinds of heterotrophs are: 1. Biophages. Biotrophs. The source of food is living organisms, e.g. animals, fungi, and some bacteria and carnivores like predators and parasites. 2. Saprophages. Saprotrophs. The source of food is dead organisms. Ecosystem. Abiotic factors. Biotic factors. Producers. Consumers. Pipe. Photoautotrophs. Chemoautotrophs. Macro consumers. Micro consumers, e.g. phytoplankton, e.g. iron bacteria. T. 7.1. Primary, secondary, tertiary. Top decomposers. Herbivores. Primary carnivores. Secondary carnivores. Reducers. Figure: flow diagram of ecosystem and its components. Ecology 86. Let's Talk Publication. Type of consumers according to their food and environment. Macro consumers. Micro consumers. Macro consumers. Phagotrophs are holozoic. They digest their food inside the body, i.e., first ingestion of food, then digestion occurs by body. Macro consumers are of following types. Primary consumers. They feed the autotrophs like plants, algae, and bacteria. The primary consumers are also called herbivores. Elton referred the herbivores as key industry animals. Rabbit, deer, etc. are primary consumers in a terrestrial ecosystem. Plant parasites are also primary consumers. Secondary consumers. Animals which feed upon primary consumers and obtain food and energy. Animals parasites E. coli bacteria, Entamoeba histolytica, liver fluke, tapeworm are also secondary consumers. Secondary consumers feed upon herbivores, so they are also called as primary carnivores. Exception: insectivorous plants are not only producers but also secondary consumers. Tertiary. Top consumers. They kill and eat the secondary consumers. They are also called secondary carnivores. Those animals which kill other animals and eat them, but they are not killed and eaten by other animal normally in the nature, are called as top consumers, e.g. lion, man, hawk, peacock. Secondary carnivorous. Top consumers. And, greater than primary carnivorous, secondary consumers. Snake. Grass herbivores producers primary consumers mouse. Herbivores primary consumers figure, different trophic levels of ecosystem. Eat microconsumers. Microconsumers involve reducers or decomposers. Reducers or decomposers are those living organisms which decompose the dead body of producers and consumers. The decomposer are also known as reducers or transformers, saprotrophs or osmotrophs. The decomposers secrete enzymes. The enzymes digest the macromolecules of dead organisms into monomer. These monomer are absorbed by reducers. The monomer is further disintegrated by decomposer into their chemical component, hence they play a significant role in mineral cycles. All the insectivorous plants can synthesize their own food by photosynthesis and also depends upon insects for nitrogen, thus play the double role, i.e., producer as well as secondary consumer. The inorganic material CO, H0, light autotrophs producers and decomposers are essential in ecosystem but macro-consumers are non-essential. Detrivores are important to food webs and food chains because the majority of biomass produced on Earth is not consumed until it is dead. In food chains that do not include primary producers, the basal source heterotrophs are the producers, e.g., vulture, crow and fox. 4.4. Decomposition. Decomposition is a process of breakdown of complex organic matter into inorganic substance. Decomposition provides carbon dioxide, water and nutrients to the environment and recycle the nutrients in the soil. Dead plant remains such as leaves, bark, flower and animals, dead body and their fecal matter, constitute detritus. The detritus is considered as the raw material for decomposition. The process of decomposition has following steps: 1. Fragmentation, 2. Leaching, 3. Catabolism, 4. Humification and 5. Mineralization. Let's talk publication 87 Ecology. 4.4.1. 4.4.2. 4.4.3. 4.4.4. 4.4.5. 4.5. 4.6. Fragmentation. Detritivores break down detritus into smaller particles. This process is called fragmentation, e.g. earthworm. Leaching. By the process of leaching, water-soluble inorganic nutrients go down into the soil horizon and get precipitated as unavailable salts. Catabolism. Bacterial and fungal enzymes degrade detritus into simple inorganic substance. This process is called as catabolism. Humification. Humification leads to accumulation of a dark-colored amorphous substance called humus that is highly resistant to microbial action and undergo decomposition at an extremely slow rate. Being colloidal in nature, it serves as a reservoir of nutrients. Types of humus. More coarse textured humus, itis raw humus, and is formed in acidic soil, pH 3.8, 4.0, in which decomposition of litter is slow because it has less number of decomposer organism. Mold. This is completely decomposed litter, i.e., humus, because rate of decomposition is fast due to high pH of soil. Best pH of the soil 5.5 to 6.5. Mineralization. The humus is further degraded by some microbes and the process of release of inorganic nutrients is known as mineralization. Factors affecting decomposition. High temperature. Low temperature retard the growth of plants and high temperature may permit plant growth. And humus accumulation in summer days. Soil moisture. Extremes of both arid and anaerobic conditions retard the plant growth and microbial decomposition. Wetter conditions of soil are most favor ABLFE or both process. Nutrients. Lack of nutrients in soil is not favorable for decomposition. Soil pH. Best pH for most of the microbes is 6 to 8. Lower or higher than this pH, microbes do not grow and do not favor decomposition. Soil texture. Soil in clays or higher altitudes or latitudes retain more humus and favors a good and fast decomposition. Oxygen and other factors. It is largely an oxygen-requiring process. The rate of decomposition is controlled by chemical composition of detritus and climatic factors. In a particular climatic condition, decomposition rate is slower if detritus is rich in lignin and chitin and quicker if detritus is rich in nitrogen and water-soluble substances like sugars. Beside it, toxic levels of some elements like Al, Mn, B, Say, Cl, etc. also affects decomposition. HUMS. Environmental conditions point detritus ID humification. Fragmentation. Leaching. Catabolism _P_. Mineralization. Flow chart. Decomposition. Structure of ecosystem. Biotic and abiotic components together make the structure of ecosystem. Another way to represent the structure of ecosystem is through some terms related to the food relationship of producers and consumers constituting the food chain and food web as follows. Standing crop. An ecosystem includes many living and non-living components. Standing crop refers to only the living things. So, the total amount or number of one or more living things in a particular area or ecosystem at any given time is called a standing crop. Standing state. In soil, many inorganic nutrients present in every season. They vary according to season or climate and the environment. But some amount of these inorganic nutrients is fixed. This amount is termed as standing state. Dynamics of ecosystem. The various components of the ecosystem constitute an interacting system. They are connected by energy. Nutrients. Ecology 88. Let's talk publication. And minerals. The nutrients and minerals circulate and recirculate between the abiotic and biotic factors of the ecosystem again and again. The continuous survival of the ecosystem depends on the flow of energy and the circulation of nutrients and minerals in the ecosystem. Thus the dynamics functions of the ecosystem includes the following. Energy. Primary production. Secondary production. Food chain. Food web. Trophic levels. Energy flow. Ecological pyramids. Nutrient cycles. 4.6.1. Energy. Energy is the ability to do work. The flow of energy is unidirectional in the ecosystem. The main source of energy for an ecosystem is the light energy derived from the sun. The amount of solar radiation reaching the surface of the Earth is 2 cals per square centimeter per minute. It is more or less constant and is called solar constant or solar flux. About 95 to 99% of the energy is lost by reflection. Plants utilize only 0.02% of the energy reaching Earth. The light energy is converted into chemical energy in the form of sugar by photosynthesis. 6H, 0 plus 6 company, plus light C cent H, O4 plus 6 company.